The palace of Luminae Prime gleamed like a jewel against the crimson sky, its translucent towers catching the light of 3 setting suns. Princess Seraphina stood at the window of her private chambers, her silver hair cascading down her back in elaborate braids, each one threaded with luminescent pearls that marked her royal status. Her lavender skin seemed to glow in the fading light, but her expression was stormy. "I will not do this," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. Behind her, King Aldrich sighed heavily. The ruler of the Luminary Empire had expected this reaction, but that didn't make it any easier to bear. "Seraphina, my star, you must understand. The human alliance is crucial to our survival." "Then make your alliance through treaties and trade agreements," Seraphina whirled to face her father, her ceremonial gown flowing around her like liquid starlight. "Why must I be the bargaining chip?" "Because marriages have sealed peace between worlds since time immemorial," Aldrich said gently. "And the humans have proven themselves formidable. Their military prowess could protect us from the Ravager clans that circle our borders." "Protect us?" Seraphina laughed bitterly. "Father, have you forgotten what humans are? They're barely civilized. They wage wars constantly, destroy their own planets, and solve every problem with brute force. I've read the reports from the Galactic Council. Humans are dangerous. They're also loyal, passionate, and surprisingly honorable." A new voice interjected from the doorway. Seraphina turned to see her father's chief advisor, Lord Vex, entering the chamber. Her uncle had always been a calming presence in her life, but today even his reassurance felt hollow. "Uncle, surely you don't support this madness?" Vex's silver eyes gleamed in the dying light. "I support what's best for our people, dear niece. Though I confess, the choice of spouse is ... unconventional." A chime echoed through the chamber, announcing a visitor. Aldrich straightened his ceremonial robes. "That will be the human representative now. Seraphina, I ask only that you meet him with an open mind." "I'll meet him," she said coldly, "but I make no promises beyond basic courtesy." The doors opened, and Captain Dashiell Reed entered the throne room with measured steps. He was tall for a human, with dark hair that fell rakishly across his forehead and eyes the color of Earth's oceans. His dress uniform was simple compared to the ornate luminary fashion, but it fit him perfectly. Emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean frame, Seraphina hated that her first thought was how handsome he looked. "Your Majesty," Dashiell bowed respectfully to the king, then turned to Seraphina. "Your Highness, I'm honored to make your acquaintance. Are you?" Seraphine's voice dripped with ice. "Honored to be part of a transaction? Tell me, Captain, do humans still practice the buying and selling of brides, or have you evolved past that particular barbarism?" Dashiell's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. "We don't buy or sell anyone, Your Highness, and I'm aware this situation isn't ideal for either of us." "Oh, how gracious of you to acknowledge my feelings." Seraphina stepped closer, her eyes flashing. "Let me be absolutely clear, human. I would rather marry a plague-ridden swamp creature than one of your kind. You're violent, primitive, and utterly beneath my station." "Seraphina," Aldrich's voice cracked like thunder, "you will apologize immediately." "I will not," she turned to her father. "I won't be forced into this arrangement. Find another way to secure your alliance, because I will never, ever marry a human." Before anyone could respond, the palace alarms began shrieking. The crystal walls vibrated with the force of explosions somewhere deep within the structure. Dashiell's hand went immediately to his sidearm, his entire demeanor shifting from diplomatic to deadly in a heartbeat. "What's happening?" Aldrich demanded. The answer came in the form of armed soldiers bursting through the chamber doors. But their uniforms weren't those of the Royal Guard. These were mercenaries, weapons raised and ready to fire. Everything happened at once. Dashiell shoved Seraphina behind him as energy blasts filled the air. King Aldrich tried to reach for the emergency alarm, but Lord Vex was suddenly there, a blade in his hand that he drove into his brother's chest with clinical precision. "No!" Seraphine's scream echoed off the walls as her father crumpled to the ground. "I'm sorry, dear niece," Vex said, his voice devoid of emotion. "But your father's weakness would have destroyed us all. The Luminary Empire needs strength, not alliances with inferior species." Dashiell's weapon fired in rapid succession, dropping 3 mercenaries before they could advance. He grabbed Seraphine's arm, pulling her toward a side passage she'd used countless times as a child. "We need to move now. My father is gone," Dashiell said firmly, his eyes scanning for threats. "And you'll join him if we don't get you out of here." Seraphina wanted to fight, to resist, to stay with her father's body. But survival instinct kicked in, and she found herself running alongside the human she'd insulted mere moments ago. Behind them, Vex's voice called out orders to find them, to bring the princess back alive. They burst through a hidden door into the royal archives, the ancient room lined with crystalline dataspheres that held millennia of Luminary history. Dashiell sealed the door behind them and immediately began checking the room for exits. "There's a passage behind the north wall," Seraphina said, her voice hollow with shock. "It leads to the catacombs beneath the palace. Can you access it?" She nodded numbly, moving to a seemingly blank section of wall and pressing her palm against it. The wall shimmered and parted, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. They plunged into darkness, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. As they ran through the winding passages, Seraphine's mind reeled. Her father was dead. Her uncle had betrayed them. And her only ally in this nightmare was a human she'd vowed to never marry. "I'm sorry," Dashiell said quietly as they paused at an intersection. "About your father." Seraphina looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. There was genuine compassion in those strange blue eyes, and something else she couldn't quite name. "Why did you save me?" "I was horrible to you." "Because it was the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because, despite what you think of humans, we protect those who need it, even if they hate us." Explosion rocked the tunnel, sending crystal shards raining down. Dashiell pulled her close, shielding her body with his own. In that moment, pressed against his chest with death, hunting them through the darkness, Seraphina felt something shift in her heart. Maybe she'd been wrong about humans. Or at least about this one. "We need to keep moving," Dashiell said. "Do these tunnels have another exit?" "Several." Seraphina pulled away, trying to ignore the warmth that lingered where they touched. "But Vex knows about most of them. He helped design the security systems." "Then we need to be smart about this." Dashiell activated a small device on his wrist, projecting a holographic map. "Where would he not expect you to go?" Seraphina studied the map, her mind racing despite her grief. Then she saw it a passage that had been sealed off decades ago after a collapse. Here, the old mining tunnels. They were condemned, but I used to explore them as a child. There's a way out into the city. Lead the way, Your Highness. "Seraphina," she corrected softly. "If we're going to be fugitives together, you might as well use my name." A ghost of a smile touched Dashiell's lips. "Dashiell. Though my friends call me Dash. We're not friends, human." "Not yet," he agreed. "But give it time." The condemned mining tunnels were worse than Seraphina remembered. Decades of neglect had transformed the passages into treacherous corridors of unstable crystal and corroded metal. Water dripped from unseen cracks, creating eerie echoes that made every sound seem like approaching footsteps. "Watch your step," Dashiell said, his wrist device casting a pale blue light ahead of them. "The structural integrity here is questionable at best." "I know these tunnels," Seraphina insisted, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. The events of the past hour had shattered her world, leaving her grasping for any sense of control. They moved in silence for several minutes before Dashiell spoke again. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm sorry about your father. He seemed like a good man." Seraphine's throat tightened. "He was the best of us. And now Vex," her voice broke. "I called him uncle. I trusted him." "Betrayal from family cuts deepest," Dashiell said quietly. "My own uncle tried to overthrow my father once. Nearly succeeded too." Despite herself, Seraphina was curious. "What happened?" "My father forgave him. Gave him a second chance." Dashiell's expression darkened. 6 months later, my uncle tried again. That time, my mother was killed in the crossfire. "I'm sorry," Seraphina said, and meant it. "The point is, I understand what you're feeling right now. The shock, the anger, the sense that everything you knew was a lie." He glanced at her, his blue eyes reflecting the dim light. "But you can't let it paralyze you. Your people need you." "My people think I'm dead or a traitor," Seraphina said bitterly. "Vex will have already spun his story. The weak princess who fled with a human lover while her father was assassinated. Then we prove him wrong," Dashiell said firmly. "We get you off-world, gather allies, and take back your throne." "Just like that?" "You make it sound simple." "I didn't say it would be simple. I said we'd do it." Something in his certainty steadied her. Seraphina found herself studying him in the dim light, the strong line of his jaw, the careful way he moved, always positioned to shield her from potential threats. She'd called humans primitive, but there was nothing unsophisticated about the way Dashiell operated. He was calculating, efficient, and undeniably competent. They emerged from the tunnels into an abandoned district of the lower city. The buildings here were ancient, predating even the current palace, their crystalline structures dulled by centuries of neglect. Perfect for hiding. "We need to find a way off-planet," Dashiell said, scanning the area. "Vex will have the spaceports locked down within the hour." "There might be another way," Seraphina said slowly. "When I was younger, I had a ... friend, merchant named Helios. He operates in the gray markets, moves goods without asking too many questions. If anyone can get us off Lumine Prime, it's him." "Can you trust him?" Seraphina laughed without humor. "I don't know who I can trust anymore. But he owes me a favor from years ago. It's the best option we have." They made their way through the winding streets, staying to the shadows. Seraphina had never been in this part of the city before. Her sheltered life in the palace had kept her from understanding how most of her people lived. The poverty here was stark, a far cry from the gleaming spires of the upper districts. "Your father knew about this?" Dashiell asked quietly. "He tried to help," Seraphina said defensively. "There are programs, aid packages. But it's not enough," Dashiell finished. "It never is when the wealth is concentrated at the top." "And I suppose humans have solved poverty?" She snapped. "No," he admitted. "We're still struggling with it ourselves. But at least we acknowledge the problem instead of hiding behind palace walls." Seraphina wanted to argue, but the truth of his words stung. She'd been so focused on her own discomfort with the arranged marriage that she'd never considered what her people truly needed. Maybe Vex had been right about one thing: the royal family had grown weak. They found Helios's establishment in the heart of the merchant quarter, a dingy building with flickering signs advertising goods from across the galaxy. Seraphina pulled up the hood of her cloak as they entered, hyper-aware of every eye that might recognize her. The interior was dimly lit and filled with the scent of exotic spices. Behind a cluttered counter stood Helios himself, a broad-shouldered luminari with scarred lavender skin and knowing silver eyes. "Well, well," Helios said, his voice a low rumble. "Little princess, all grown up. And here I thought you'd forgotten about old Helios." I need your help, Seraphina said quietly. Helios's eyes flicked to Dashiell, assessing. Human military. This just gets more interesting. I heard about the palace. Terrible business, that. You knew already? Seraphina asked, shocked. News travels fast in the lower districts, Princess. Lord Vex is offering a substantial reward for your return. Says you're traumatized, need protection. Helios leaned forward. Thing is, I don't believe a word of it, but helping fugitives is risky business. Especially fugitives worth that much money. Name your price, Dashiell said. I'm not talking to you, human, Helios said coldly. I'm talking to her. Princess, what's it worth to you? What can you offer me besides empty promises? Seraphina reached up and unclasped the pendant from around her neck, her mother's pendant, the last piece of her family she had left. The crystal at its center pulsed with captured starlight, worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. This, she said, placing it on the counter, and my word that when I reclaim my throne, you'll have trade rights to the entire eastern quadrant. No questions asked about your cargo. Helios whistled low. You're serious about this. Deadly serious. The merchant studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I have a ship. Small, fast, untraceable. Can get you to Obsidian Gate Neutral Station. Perfect for lying low. But it leaves in 30 minutes, and I can't guarantee safe passage. Vex's forces are already patrolling the upper atmosphere. We'll take it, Dashiell said. One more thing, Helios added. The ship only has provisions for a week. After that, you're on your own. And Princess? Don't come back here. Helping you once is all the charity I can afford. They followed Helios through a maze of back passages to a hidden docking bay. The ship was small indeed, barely larger than a personal transport, but its engines hummed with barely contained power. She's fast, Helios assured them, and I've already programmed the navigation. Once you're out of atmosphere, engage the quantum drive. You'll be at Obsidian Gate in 6 hours. As they climbed aboard, Seraphina turned back to Helios. Thank you. I won't forget this. Just make sure you live long enough to keep your promises, Princess. The ship's cockpit was cramped, forcing Seraphina and Dashiell into close proximity. He took the pilot's seat with practiced ease, his hands dancing over controls that looked alien to her eyes. You know how to fly this? She asked. Human military training covers a lot of different ship types, he said, initiating the launch sequence. Hold on, this is going to get rough. The ship shot out of the hidden bay like a stone from a sling. Seraphina was thrown back into her seat as they rocketed toward the upper atmosphere. Below them, Luminae Prime cities glittered like scattered gems, growing smaller with each passing second. 3 patrol ships breaking formation, Dashiell said, his voice tense. They've spotted us. Warning alarms shrieked as energy bolts streaked past their viewport. Dashiell threw the ship into a spinning dive, then pulled up sharply, the maneuver pressing Seraphina into her seat with crushing force. Do you always fly like a maniac? She gasped. Only when people are shooting at me, he replied, executing another impossible turn, which, admittedly, is more often than you'd think. Despite the danger, despite everything, Seraphina found herself smiling. There was something exhilarating about this. The speed, the danger, the feeling of being truly alive for the first time in her sheltered existence. There. Dashiell pointed to a gap in the patrol formation. If I can thread through there, you'll get us killed, Seraphina finished. You have a better idea? She didn't do it. What followed was the longest 10 seconds of Seraphine's life. The ship screamed through the narrow gap between 2 patrol vessels, so close she could see the surprised faces of the pilots through their viewports. Energy fire scorched their hull, alarms wailing as systems struggled to compensate. Then they were through, breaking into open space. Dashiell's fingers flew over the controls, engaging the quantum drive. Reality seemed to bend around them, stars stretching into long streaks of light. They were safe. For now, in the sudden quiet, Serafina became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how their shoulders touched in the cramped space. Dashiell turned to her, and she saw her own adrenaline reflected in his eyes. "That was insane," she said. "But effective," he countered. "You could have gotten us both killed, but I didn't." They stared at each other, the tension between them shifting into something else entirely. Seraphine's heart was pounding, but no longer from fear. She noticed details she'd missed before: the small scar above his left eyebrow, the flecks of darker blue in his irises, the way his lips curved when he was trying not to smile. "Stop looking at me like that," she said. But her voice lacked conviction. "Like what?" "Like you're trying to figure me out." "Maybe I am," Dashiell said softly. "You're not what I expected, Serafina. When they told me I was being sent to meet a princess, I expected someone pampered and naive. But you're stronger than that." "You don't know me at all," she protested. "No," he agreed. "But I'd like to." Serafina opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Everything about this situation was wrong. She should hate him, should be planning how to escape at the first opportunity. Instead, she found herself wondering what it would be like to close the small distance between them, to see if his lips were as soft as they looked. The moment was broken by a proximity alert. 6 hours had passed in what felt like minutes, and Obsidian Gate loomed before them. A massive station built into an asteroid, its lights glittering against the darkness of space. "Ready?" Dashiell asked. Serafina took a deep breath, pushing aside the confusing feelings swirling in her chest. "Ready?" As they approached the docking bay, she caught Dashiell's hand. He looked at her in surprise. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. I know I was awful to you before, and you had every right to leave me to my fate. But you didn't. I told you." Dashiell squeezed her hand gently. "I protect those who need it, even stubborn princesses who insult my entire species." "I didn't mean," she started, but he cut her off with a smile. "Yes, you did. And maybe some of it was even true. But we're partners now, Serafina. Whether you like it or not. Partners." The word resonated in her chest as they docked at Obsidian Gate. She'd lost everything in one terrible day: her father, her home, her certainty about the universe. But somehow, impossibly, she'd gained something too. She just wasn't ready to name it yet.